is currently sifting through the evidence that they've heard and representations made by some leaders that were flagged in its own report, and who were purportedly accused of bringing the reputation of the ANC into disrepute in one way or the other. The SABC understands that the ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule has written letters to all 22 red-flagged leaders of the party to appear before the Integrity Commission to clear their names. Those include Deputy President David Mabuza, Mining Minister Gwede Mantashe, former Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba. The Commission is expected to conclude hearing these members' sides of the story within the next 2 days. To help us unpack all of this, I'm now joined by political analyst and director of research at ASRI, Angelo Fick. Angelo, thanks very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to talk to you, and there always seems to be things happening. But I want to start with President Ramaphosa, his speech on Saturday, and I guess setting up what we think might happen during the course of this week. Did you get a sense from what he said? Will that affect the Integrity Commission's work in any way?
I suspect that there is a very complex relationship between the deliberations of the Integrity Committee, Mr. Ramaphosa's speech as inaugural address as President of the Republic of South Africa. But both of those, I think, reflect the decision by the NEC to take the ANC in a new direction. And that decision, I think, taken both after December 2017 and ahead of the elections, was the idea that all of the stuff that had brought the ANC into the position where it was perceived to be at odds with its own conception of moral stature, etc., that meant that there was going to have to be a new direction, to quote the President from his address. So we've now shifted from new dawn to new direction. The test, of course, will be whether or not the ANC loyalty of members will be tested, because here the question is, there is no legal requirement of them to do what the Integrity Commission says it should do, but there is a moral obligation and an organizational diktat. And so the question will be whether people choose the organization over individual ambition, desire, whatever those ambitions and desires are, or whether they insist that their version of themselves in the, but under these circumstances, should triumph over the organization's needs.
So the Commission in the past has been accused of being this toothless dog that's just there in name, really. So it will be important for it to be taken seriously. And so the President has to weigh this up. Do I empower my Commission and listen to it, or do I hedge my bets and say, look, I've got to balance this party, I've got to function, I've got to put all of these things together. How does he deal with it?
Well, I think the challenge will be to consolidate government, first of all, because having just taken the oath of office, all of those MPs, the President himself, have put the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa as the primary mechanism through which they will be held accountable and to which they have to be loyal. His secondary job is, of course, to keep the ANC not just intact, but on track towards improvement, because, we are only 2.5 years away. We've just finished an election, but we can't get too tired too quickly. Local government elections are coming up, and there cannot be a repeat of 2016, nor can there be a worse performance by the ANC. And then 2024 re-election is, of course, already on people's minds, because the danger signs of a reduced margin of majority at 57 cannot be, the ANC's performance over the next 5 years cannot worsen, which results in voters walking away, and it faces either minority government or coalition against it, and it moves into opposition.
All right, so let's talk about some of the characters. Deputy President, former Deputy President David Mabuza says that the Integrity Commission relied on hearsay, on the media, and did not produce any real evidence. Not sure how true that is or not, but if that is the case, it is a challenge for the Integrity Commission then to defend their position. He's already said, look, I'll wait, and maybe he's confident that he'll be cleared. What does the President do? Does he delay announcing a Deputy President? Is he even forced to appoint David Mabuza as a President? Because the NEC still has to decide, don't they, on what the Commission recommends?
Right. So I think, as anybody who's worked in corporate South Africa also knows, it's almost impossible to prove or disprove bringing into disrepute. It's one of those vague charges that, you know, two sides looking at the same evidence can argue very differently. It is, of course, a serious charge that has led to the dismissal of people, but how one argues that a particular individual's actions or those allegations against that individual of actions resulted in particular kinds of outcomes that could be called bringing into disrepute, that's open to argumentation. This is an integrity commission which its internal processes will be known to it and to members who are implicated in it, but it isn't like a court of law, and so, you know, the, shall we say, value and what is used to establish, you know, actual evidence will not be the same as in a court of law, and so we're dealing with a slightly grayer territory than we would have to deal with in a high court or even a magistrate's court. There is, of course, the tension for the president that he has to, and people use the word appease, he is still there only at the mercy of his party. Let's not forget this. It is the party that chose him as their candidate. It is the party's members that voted him in. So he has a certain accountability to the NEC. He is not the God Emperor of the African National Congress. And I think both he and those in the NEC and in the party more generally are very much aware of this.
We've run out of time, but perhaps in 30 seconds, I don't know if it's possible, but so Malusi and Nomvula are out of the MP story, so perhaps that's not an issue anymore. But Gwede Mantashe and Pravin Gordhan, what to do?
Well, clearly they're going to have to argue their cases at this Integrity Commission, but the Public Protector's process will continue, and the President may have to take a tough decision and test whether or not Mr. Gordhan will do what he's done before, which is to step out and come back later when it is convenient to do so.
All right. Fantastically done in 30 seconds, Angelo. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for coming through.